Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest ALTA Insights webinar. I'm Jeremy Yohe, Alta's Vice President of Communications, and thank you for joining us today. Our experts are going to discuss how AI, artificial intelligence, is reshaping and modifying key workflows from title search, commit generation, curative actions, data collection and compilation and storage, I guess. So a lot of ways you can look at AI, a lot of ways it can be implemented and used. And I think as we've talked with the speakers today, AI is not the silver bullet. There's definitely a big learning curve, and hopefully today's discussion, helps you maybe get around the bend a little bit. Before starting, I always have a few housekeeping items I've got to go over. A copy of today's presentation can be downloaded from the handout section in the GoToWebinar window pane. Also, today's webinar is being recorded. You'll get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow. It will also include a link to download a copy of today's presentation. And you can always access all of our webinar recordings at alta.org/webinars. If at any time you have a question, submit them in the questions box. We'll hold some time at the end for Q&A. I do need to thank SoftPro for sponsoring today's webinar, and we have a short message from SoftPro.
My favorite thing about making the change or the switch to SoftPro has been all of the automations, the integration, what is inside the system itself, where you don't have to really leave. It's been a lot more efficient for our team to just be in one spot.
All right, thank you, SoftPro, for that message. Let me make sure the presentation is showing again. All right, there we go. And with that, let me introduce today's speakers. First, we have CJ Shah. CJ is co-founder and chief strategy officer of Skylark Digital, which is an AI managed service provider. And also joining us today is Tim Jamison. You'll see Tim is donning a wonderful hat. Tim is chief operations officer for Best Title Agency, which serves West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. And Tim graciously is still joining us despite being on vacation with his family, and we are have our fingers crossed that his family does not arrive from the beach during the webinar. So thank you both for joining us, and CJ, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremy, for the kind introduction, and a warm welcome to all of you, those who have joined from various parts of the globe. Good morning, afternoon, evening. It's absolutely a privilege to be part of this conversation. You guys are global and thoughtful audience. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm CJ Shah, co-founder of Skylark, and I'm joined with Tim Jamison. He's a chief operation officer at Best Title. I really value Tim for his precision and purpose to bring operation to life. So it's a good friend, dear friend. What we will be looking at today is just not a promise of AI. We are here to talk about the practice, correct? How AI is no longer just an emerging technology, but also a catalyst transforming how industry work, serve, and grow. We call this moment, I would call, and as Jeremy has mentioned, it is AI in action. So let's dive in, not in the future, but what's already on the horizon. So next slide, yeah. Now this slide basically, captures most importantly is the technology evolution, definitely, but it also reflects the seismic shift which is taking place in the way the work is reimagined. So if we look at the rise of AI, correct, the intelligent systems that don't just automate tasks, but actively learn, reason, and orchestrate workflows across complex fragmented ecosystem. And I would consider this as a mature stage of AI, where a rule-based automation to adaptive intelligence has taken place. What does it mean? I mean, you have a reducing operational friction, You have amplifying accuracy and driving exponential gains in scale and speed. Now, you'll be asking, all of you might be having a question in your mind, how does it matter to me, right? And I'll give you kind of understanding why it matters to you guys. So if we look at the title operation, for decades, what we have seen is most of the work is grounded in manual, human-intensive tasks, abstracting public records, validating ownership, clearing liens, and also making sure that you have commitments which are generated. Now, all this you have seen is a heavy-duty data keying that takes place. You have a lot of dependency on the legacy processes. So the stakeholders, whether it is agencies or attorneys or underwriters, they feel the pain. Correct? They feel the pain from the standpoint of fragmented tools, having a cost and risk going up. You have the client dissatisfaction also. Now, if you combine this with some of the trends which are taking place, where the cost is compressing, correct? You have a regulatory oversight which is intensifying. You have skilled talent which is thinning out, and that is, I think, is the reason that we want to see as to how we can put this trend side by side, where the rise of AI capability and the title sector's need for speed, scale, and efficiency, it becomes clear. This becomes clear that adopting AI is not luxury; it is a business imperative. Now, if we look at what's the kind of overall trend, we have seen a lot of studies where it shows over 60% of title companies are already exploring automation. I'm sure you would have read the recent Alta Online news where many companies are incorporating generative AI into their operation to automate outreach, to obtain things like homeowner association documents and mortgage payoffs and things like that. And so I think it is important for us to understand any delay in this decision to adopt AI is going to be helping competitors open more doors. And I think the shift which is taking place is not only related to AI, it is the one which is where how you can augment the experts' capability, correct? Those experts, those who are continuously working on various different functions. And I think that's one which is where I see the great deal of work, which is what can be done from redesigning tomorrow's advantage. So let's move forward and unpack exactly what it takes for us to look at various different aspects of the title production continuum. Next slide, please. So this slide basically is giving understanding based on our previous alignment that AI adoption in this industry is no longer optional, it is imperative. And that leads to a kind of a logical question: how do we prepare for the right way? Right? What are the things that we should be doing to make sure that we are able to embed AI into our operation? And this slide basically is designed to give kind of 6 critical AI readiness parameters, each carrying different level of importance, and that importance escalates as we go from left to right. So let's talk about a digital document, right? I mean, if we see, it's definitely a foundational element, and not to overstate, but I think the one where if your records are digitized, it's well and good. If it is not, it is a solvable problem. So I would not look at this as a make or break situation. I would look this as a baseline, not as a bottleneck. So that's a starting point. But if we look at the workforce change readiness, this is one which is extremely important, because when we talk about AI adoption, it is not a tech project. I would consider this as an operating model shift. So the question that no individual should be asking is my team trained to work with AI? Are roles evolving in sync with the technology? Are we enabling the workforce, not just implementing the platform? And what is that is the cultural shift that has to be there. So those are the one which can give us understanding as to what is that workforce change readiness is important, needs to be done. Now, if we look at the second part, which is data interoperability and system APIs, correct? That again is if you are having a siloed system, it is very difficult to extract the best value out of AI. It is very difficult to get the right kind of throughput from AI. And I think that defines the purpose. And that's one of the reasons that the interconnected systems are very, very important. The one which is also very important is human in the loop enablement. So if we look at how is that we can replace human expertise, we are not looking for human expertise to be replaced. It is something which is supposed to be amplified. So if you have examiners, you have clearance experts, you have attorneys, then they have to find out as to how to review and validate exceptions. And what is AI doing to help me do that? Correct? How to train the system through guided feedback. What is that has to be done when it comes to defining the intervention? Correct? So those are the areas which is what needs to be answered to make sure that human in the loop is very well taken care of. The AI validation framework. This is second last, but it's very, very important, because if you do not have AI, which is giving you trace how the AI is making a decision, it's not good. You also have to track the false positive. It's important that there are a lot of areas where you have a mechanism that has to be put in place to track the false positive. You also need to make sure that there is a continuous feedback loop in place to handle those edge cases. And the last, AI in full production mode. Now, this is the one which I would call the most decisive marker of readiness. Now, why I'm saying this is now there are a lot of questions that someone can ask in terms of, do you have AI in your environment? And the answer would be saying, hey, we have it. But the real question is it in production delivering measurable business impact? That I think is the one which is what people are not sure. So if you are asking a question as to, do you have a tangible results with regards to 60–70% reduction in turnaround time? Do you have a reduction in operational cost by 70 to 80%? Do you get the best of best quality without manual oversight? Those are the questions. When someone is asking, you'll be able to find out whether AI is a PowerPoint or it's a production, right? So if you are evaluating a vendor, the first thing I would request is to say, hey, let's start with proof of value, or you call proof of concept. Let's have vendor deliver the best of the quality as per your expectations, as per your SLAs, as per your KPIs at no cost, no obligations. Let's do that first. Once you go past that stage, I think then in that case, it becomes very, very simple to create a business case. You can understand what solid business case this particular function offers. Next slide.
Hey, CJ, real quick, if you don't mind, I wanted to, a couple of questions popped in my mind here, and I actually want to pitch them to Tim and get him involved here a little bit. And the first slide, you had the timelines, kind of the evolution. And Tim, I was curious, when, how many years ago, or I don't know, months or whenever you implemented it, but when did you guys start thinking about AI as an option to help you drive efficiencies?
So I think this started almost 18 to 20 months back. And Jeremy, the important aspect is that when we are implementing AI, we have to understand it is a confluence of AI, domain, and data. That's a tipping point, correct? If you are only looking at AI in silo, it's not going to cut it, because you do not know the domain. And so we have 20 years of experience working in this domain that helped us build AI platform. I would call AI is the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of things which is what goes beneath that level, which is where the domain and data comes into play. And there are companies, those who were trusting us to say, hey, if you have the right kind of AI platform, let's run this as a proof of value. And that's how I think we started. And today it is in full production mode. Did I answer your question, Jeremy?
Yeah, I was actually looking at, like, from Tim's perspective, from an agency point of view, of when in this process his company was starting to look at AI options, and then when, maybe when they executed, a little bit of a timeline from the title agency perspective.
And that's a very good question, Jeremy. And I think that's one which is I have covered in the fifth slide, but I can just give you a quick take on this.
Yeah, but let's just get him involved here a little bit.
From Best Titles perspective, it's about 3 or 4 years ago where it just, you see it in the news, you hear about things that are happening, then you start to wonder, what can this do for us? What can this do for our staff? What can this do for our company? And so 3 or 4 years ago, I started looking at different areas where artificial intelligence could potentially help. And it was about 2 years ago where we were really able to implement something specific that was able to help our team provide a better quality service to our customers.
And that makes sense. And team, thanks for jumping in. But yeah, you're right. I think when we unpack the dimension of AI readiness, correct? When we say, hey, these are the things which is what we need to do as far as readiness is concerned, the next question which comes is, where do we start? And I think the answer lies in understanding the title production continuum. So if you look at the continuum, you have order intake, commitment production, title search, clear to close, correct? Those are the 4 major steps which are taken. Now, when we look at the order intake, I would say that's the smartest starting point when we talk about how to put AI in the title production. Because I'm sure most of the people, those who are on the call, they would understand order intake process is basically starting with receiving the orders. Typically, you receive the orders with emails, portals, or LOS integration, correct? And it has a predictable set of attachments. You have CPLs, invoices, escrow instructions, and all those different documents. Now, what we have seen is that these documents adhere to a standardized template issued by underwriters. I'm sure team would agree to this. And so we need to make sure that we are able to look at these standardized documents, and that's one which is ideally suited for AI-driven extraction. AI can understand this, and OCR and NLP are one of the best technology that can be put to use to make sure the extraction is taking place properly. And then you have something which is to do with what fields that has to be extracted. You have borrower name, property address, lender details. This gets extracted in today's world, which is with near to 100% accuracy. What does it mean? So when we look at various different aspects as far as the order is concerned, it's a high volume and it has a rule-based engagement. The processes are very, very rule-based, and that's where it is ideally suited for AI to get implemented. And we have seen the impact. Now, if you look at the impact, the intake time drops by about 5 minutes, so from 30 minutes to 5 minutes. If you look at the agent throughput, it goes double. Now, when we talk about agent throughput going double, which means the head count has to increase, which I call is a non-linear growth. You keep adding orders without having increased the head count, and then error rates, they drop drastically. You have 45% error rates which are dropping, and then you have turnaround time which improves by about 60%. So I think the key takeaway is that order intake is a low complexity, minimal risk, and you can get rapid ROI. And that's one of the reasons that it is ideally suited for AI adoption. Now, if you look at the other one, which is what is a little more complex. So if you look at the commitment production, correct? The journey, of course, will begin with order intake. But if you look at the commitment production, it has a high stake. And why? Because this is the document that ultimately communicates insurability, exceptions, and legal risk for all the stakeholders. So producing a title commitment involves compiling, analyzing, and validating large volume of data. You call ground search report or search report that has legal description, vesting information, tax records, lien details, and more than that, you have to organize all those documents into a precise order to see that you are able to create this underwriter compliant commitment. This is not the one which is what is going to be without manual intervention. Let's understand that. So where the fit is, so if we look at where AI can play a role in this continuum, one is, of course, no, they will be looking at the title commitment defined format. That I think makes the AI life very easy, because you have AI powered document assembly, clause extraction, exception handling, all that is taking place quite fluently. Now, you definitely need human intervention, because when you talk about commitment, it is a very important document. And so what you need to do is, how is that AI can pre-flag issues? What is that AI can do when it comes to populating schedule A, B, and things like that, but also has confidence score assigned to it. That I think is very, very important. Now, AI nowadays is able to do, which is very interesting, which is what is reducing the examiner time. It is able to reconcile property legal description, match ownership data, validate lien releases, and then make sure that it is helping reduce inconsistency. So overall, I would say the business impact wise, it is helping reduce turn time by about 50%. The E&O exposures goes down drastically. Cost efficiency goes up because you have human in the loop, and AI also is able to produce per file, which is at a much lower cost. So all in all, this is a good win. Title search is highly complex, and I would say it is going to be out in the horizon 2-3 years, maybe more, to see that a full automated title search takes place. Because I think the biggest challenge that we have seen is that legal nuances like probate, easement, affidavits, those are the one which is what is very difficult to capture, and no AI can understand that. So I think there is going to be a little time before we can reach to a point where we'll be having a good automation applied on the title search side. All in all, if I have to say, what is that my suggestion would be? So if clients are crafting AI strategy, I would say they should begin with the simplest and less complex process. And so order intake and commitment processing is the one which I would say is the best bet to see that you are able to leverage AI. Next slide. Is there any questions, Jeremy?
And the timing of when somebody would want to start, if you haven't utilized anything inside your system, inside your production yet, you need to make sure that you make time as if AI is a new employee, as if it's somebody that you're bringing onto your team that is going to need trained and going to need to be massaged, and you're going to have some patience with it, because out of the box, it's not going to be perfect for your team or for your production system. So you have to make sure that you're going to have the patience and be willing to invest the time, because if you don't, you're going to use it once, you're going to say, this doesn't work, it didn't do this right, it didn't do that right. It needs time to learn how your operation works. And then you also need to learn, how can I implement this in a way to maximize the efficiency of your team and the folks that are working in the offices, and how can they benefit from that, and how can the clients benefit from that?
I agree. I completely agree with you, Dave. And so I'm just double dipping on the title commitment production, correct? Here is the slide which basically gives understanding in terms of, while you are going to work on the commitment production, where the precision, compliance, turnaround time, underwriter trust is extremely important. I think the one which is what I see is a great deal of sophistication that I showed in my first slide, which is going to be very, very helpful. So when we talk about architecting self-improving AI native engine, I think that's one which is what can help maximum in this title commitment production. Because what you can do is, you are able to look at opportunity to create those features. So one is definitely extracting the data and putting that into schedule A and B. That I think is helping reduce the data keying time. But what is that can help to make sure that the review time is going down, examiner time is going down. So that's where this features plays very important role. So if you look at advanced flagging and confidence scoring, correct? That's one which is what I would say is helping reduce the downstream examiner workload by 40 to 60%. If you look at any post-close revision, that comes down drastically. You also are able to lower your E&O exposure because early risk identification takes place. Same is the case when we talk about legal description parsing and cross-validation. I think that's one which is very, very interesting. So AI engines extracts and normalize meets and bound legal description, mapping them against recorded documents and existing plant data using NLP and GIS. I think that's one which is what is one of the most interesting feature, where you can have a reduction of human intervention almost by 70%. And then you have a lot of other features, like you have AI bookmarking of key documents. So what happens is that you have a system automatically bookmarks deed, mortgages, assignments, probates, and other critical instruments, which I think would help make sure that there is a classification of the documents which is much faster, and it helps reduce the manual tagging time by about 30 to 40%. And then you have the multimodal ingestion. So I will not go into all those points, but I think the one which I see is that the greatest level of sophistication which has taken place in the commitment production. And I would say it is very important that someone is able to look at this platform and see as to what is that can be done to reimagine how commitment production is supposed to take place with AI being trained continuously, because there's a continuous loop which helps make sure that it is getting more and more efficient. I would say that the one which is where I've seen the biggest impact is because cost to error ratio has to be lower. Any small error has a high cost exposure. And if you are able to reduce that, I think that's one which is what is the biggest advantage that you can see, apart from the fact that the payoff is going to be both financial and reputational. So that's my take, boss. Team, it's now next is your slide, and I think we can discuss more on terms of how is that you were able to select the vendor, what all parameters were impinging when you had selected the vendors and things like that. So over to you, Tim.
Okay. So,
Sorry, CJ, did you want to advance the slide, or what slide should we be on here right now?
The next slide, slide number 7, I would say.
There we go. CJ, I had a real quick, Tim, if you don't mind me jumping in here, I had a question on those 3 stages. And obviously, yeah, the first one a little bit more mature, and as we, you get through to the searching and issuing title commitments and a policy, is a little bit more complicated and a little bit more young. The industry hangs its hat on accuracy and risk. Those are 2 underpinnings of the industry, mostly reducing risk. How do you assess the process? How do you know if you're using AI, if there are fields that are you have low confidence or there's high risk? Is it just kind of you pass it, pushing it downstream, and the title examiner then is having to review everything?
Yeah, so what we have done is, while at the time there is so if you look at the title commitment, let's take this example, correct? Now, if we take this ground search report, our AI is able to look at this report and say, I consider that as a blob. It is able to classify those documents, because when you classify the documents, you know where to start from the standpoint of extraction of data. Now, there is a great deal of efficiency that AI is able to operate with when it comes to extracting the right data, putting that into the commitment template, which is predefined by the underwriters. Now, what happens is that when it comes to that 5%, 10% accuracy, you really need to make sure that you have the right kind of experts, those who are able to look at those templates and the commitment, which is what is produced, and any of those small errors that needs to be adjusted, or there has to be any correction, quality assurance that has to be done. So that's how we do it, where we commit, we underwrite 99.8% accuracy. When we deliver the commitment, we underwrite that, we put that in the SLA. So even while at the time we are using AI and we are able to produce the best of the best accuracy, we would make sure that we have the human in the loop, we have the experts, those who are able to do the quality assurance, which is 2-3 times, to deliver something which is the highest of the level of accuracy. Did I answer your question, Jeremy?
Yeah, thank you, CJ. Let's get back to Tim on the vendor engagement journey and how you pick who you've worked with.
Well, first, we're on an Alta hosted call, and if you have not attended a conference that Alta puts on, you are missing out. And so step one for me is get to an Alta conference, because that's where everybody is. They host wonderful events, and when you attend, you get to meet several people. You just walk up, say hi, where are you from, and what do you do? There's always vendor exhibitions, and I've met wonderful people. And if you think that the investment might not be worth it, I'm here to tell you that every time I have attended a conference, I've got the money back for the expense 3 times before I even left, with relationships that I've been able to build, vendors that I've been able to meet, people that have great ideas. You could think, well, they might be my competition. Okay, if you're in Virginia, somebody in the state of Washington doesn't care about what you're doing, but they care passionately about their business and talking about their business. So step one, get to a conference and meet some folks. So at an Alta conference, walked around, asked what people did, how they did it, and you build relationships with people, and then it gives you the opportunity to evaluate their services and products. Once you've seen some evidence that their product can work for you, you have to commit to having the time or making the time to ensure that a product will work. Because if you're, again, like I said earlier, if you think that you're just going to sign a contract and it's easy peasy from there, it's not. Again, it's like hiring somebody. You're going to have to spend some time training them. It's not, months and months and months, but it takes some time. So contracting, everybody reads contracts. I would say, you don't want to start with some 5-year, 3-year commitment. And if somebody's throwing that out there, you might want to ask some questions, but it's got to be some commitment, because they're going to invest time in you to make sure that their services and products are working for you. A great example of something that we've utilized is document sorting. So in every office that we have, after a closing, we would have somebody, typically somebody that works at the front desk, sort buyer seller documents, get everything scanned into our system, get packages back to the lenders. We're doing recording, and that's very time consuming. And unfortunately, what we found is sometimes those folks that sit at the front desk also get disinterested in sitting at a front desk quickly. And so it was a high turnover position, and it was hard to keep those folks engaged, because maybe if the opening for a rise in our company was at a slower pace than what they might expect, they go elsewhere. And so the amount of training that required to teach folks on how to do that was very difficult, particularly if somebody leaves in the spring or summertime. And so we met with a vendor that offered document sorting, and it's worked great. We've been able to centralize what we call our warehousing department for multiple offices. It's not necessarily that we have lower headcount. I don't know if that's our goal, but what it has made is, in some of these offices, some of that work that might drive someone out the door helps them get more time to build relationships, to have a one-on-one connection with somebody that walks in the door, to give them an extra few minutes to smile and chat with a realtor and say, thank you for sending the business. And so we're really building moments of time to build greater relationships, stronger relationships, because without relationships, none of us are in business. And so that system that we built, which is they scan the whole package, all the documents get sorted. There's a QC check before even the documents are FedEx to our centralized area to see, does anything need, did we miss a notary stamp? Did we miss a signature stamp? Did we miss initials? That's able to be caught before a package is sent off to those folks that all they do is get the documents out to the appropriate places. So it's been a great benefit for us, particularly in offices that might not have the opportunity to have a large support staff. Those folks in our offices, it really has built time where they can build stronger relationships with our clients and customers.
That was fantastic, Tim. I haven't heard anyone describe, using AI as building moments of time to develop strong relationships. That's that's very fascinating. You touched on a little bit that you've implemented some AI, but your goal isn't necessarily to reduce headcount. It's to grow your business because it allows your employees to then focus on what you need to do, develop those relationships to bring more business in.
Exactly. That's how we use it. And then, there's working on closing disclosures, and sometimes it's just, that's not going to be perfect, but if it saves somebody 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that they can use engaging with a strong conversation with a client that might need attention more than that closing disclosure.
I agree, Tim. And I think the one which is what I have seen being part of Alta is that they continuously demonstrate this foresight by not only convening key stakeholders, but also actively making sure that they are able to capture market signals, correct? I think that's one which is very rare. I have seen that being happening where they capture this market signal of emerging technologies, regulatory shifts which are taking place, evolving customer expectation, and then they translate that into actionable insights, which I think is absolutely important, because members are coming together, which is also for being part of this network, but also they want to make sure that they are able to take the advantage of the contribution which is what Alta provides, whether it is to do with AI automation, which can help make sure that their production is more measurable and they are able to take advantage of it. Yeah.
Was there anything else on the vendor engagement journey you wanted to touch on, or moving on to the next slide?
We can move it on, I think.
Oh, all right. Well, then that was the last slide. So that was a little bit of a look into AI, and open it up to questions, from anyone who's attending. We've had a few come in. Tim had actually a couple from Mary that you actually answered there toward the end. She was looking for a little bit more detail on, what aspects of the process you use AI on, and what has been the outcome. So I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to expand on outcomes, or
Sure.
where you use AI.
Yep, and I'm sorry for moving around again. I just walked off from the beach, and I can hear some people coming into the house that we rented, so there might be a little bit of noise. I think some folks are coming in for lunch. I'm on vacation this week, but we've utilized artificial intelligence for order entry. For your standard orders that are coming from lenders, it works great. There are sometimes you have clients or folks that have unique purchase contracts, unique purchase situations. It's not going to work for that yet. It will at some point in time. But order entry, utilizing matching and balancing closing disclosures, that's getting a lot better. Didn't start off at that great, but again, I'm going to continually to repeat it. You have to spend time, and you have to spend time with your vendor, giving them feedback on what's working and what's not. So working with closing disclosures, document sorting, and also we've utilized it in organizing our back policies, our title plant, so to say, and making that a much more user-friendly and enabled us to quickly search digitally to find prior policies, which we didn't necessarily have before, but artificial intelligence played a key role in making sure that we were able to do that.
She had a follow-up question. So just for clarification, because I'm not exactly sure either. So AI doesn't actually do the search. Someone has to do the search, pull the search, and then AI then it would extract the necessary data.
We don't use AI for any searches right now.
Okay. CJ, maybe that question for you then, as far as, what does the AI actually what is it doing?
Yeah. So if we look at the search report, sometimes you have the search report which is for a refi. Sometimes you have a search report which is for a purchase. You have current owner. So there are various different combination of search report which comes. I call ground search report, and then they basically have multiple different documents. Correct. So AI is able to look at that block and identify that document, whether it is a mortgage deed or release letter, and they are able to extract the right data, which is what we can show. This is going live right now. It is in a full production mode where AI is able to extract the data from the search and put that into the commitment template, which is defined by our client. And that is giving accuracy, which is very close to 80 to 85%. Now, what is happening is that the balance is taken care of by quality assurance and things like that. But the one which I would say is the biggest winner is that you have the advanced flagging and confidence scoring. Right? That helps make sure that you are able to reduce the downstream examiner workload. Examiner has to review this. Now, if you have a flagging which is taking place, it can give kind of real good understanding. Same, I think, is the case when you have a kind of a bookmarking. Correct? You have the documents which are deed, mortgage, assignments, probates. Those are bookmarked. People take 15, 20, 25 minutes. One of the best experts would take 20 minutes, 25 minutes. This does it in very few minutes. And same, I think, is the legal description. I would say those are the features which is going above and beyond just extraction, OCR, NLP, everything is being done. But when you have those features, that helps, and that is what our customer likes about us, is that the impact, which is what is beyond just data entry, operators time getting reduced and turnaround and cost efficiency. It also helps reduce the examiner time. They basically had, and there are people those who invested in us, they trusted us to see that we are able to build these features.
Okay. Let's see, CJ, a few more questions, for you from the PowerPoint. On phase 2, you had RFP. Mary was curious what that meant, what that stands for. I'm guessing that's request for proposal from the vendors you're looking for. RFPs pretty much spell out, what you want to achieve and what the vendor will provide. Is there anything else you want to talk about at our RFP?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I'm taking it from team's suggestion, but the request for proposal is basically defining the service requirement, correct? Now, you can have your own individual doing the service requirement study and say, hey, I want to go with order processing, like what team, that is the first thing that I want to do. Then this is the volume I have, this is the process I follow, these are the platforms that I use, these are the number of individuals, those who are working on this project. So you do basically motion study, correct? And then you come up with a kind of understanding as to, based on time and motion study, this is what it looks like in terms of the overall requirements. And then you can list down those requirements, and individuals are able to come up with a kind of a plan. How is that they will be able to provide the solution? This, I think, is true for even the commitment production. But yes, it's basically system requirement or service requirement study document.
Okay. Tim, another question for you, and we don't have to call out vendors specifically. If Laura, if you want to connect with Tim afterward, you can probably share, companies and integrations. But she, at a top level, she was curious, Tim, how does the AI solution you use integrate with your title production system?
Some integrate and some don't, but document sorting doesn't. But the time saving that it allowed, the lack of integration really didn't matter, because once the documents are sorted, instead of physically doing it on a long countertop, so to say, it's all digital. And so once it's done, and it's done very quickly, it's as simple as dragging it over and uploading it. So just because something doesn't integrate doesn't mean that it's not useful.
Yeah, and in our case, Jeremy, what has happened is now when we talk about this title commitment production, correct? The customer had started with getting JSON file, just giving you use cases, correct? So after having done all what we were doing in terms of building that commitment template, they wanted it to be in a JSON file, and they were integrating in their system. Now, after having reviewed the JSON file for multiple times, they found out that the quality is of the highest level and their accuracy is high. So then they said, okay, fine, let's do the integration. But I think, so there are steps which are taken to say, hey, we can do this in a phased manner. Get the JSON file, see as to what is it, or whatever the output format that you feel comfortable with, and then have the integration done. And I think it works very well.
Okay. A question from Seth on using AI. And he asks, CJ, is that extraction of the search report getting to exceptions and requirements?
The search report getting acceptable templates, is that underwriters are approved? Is that?
I'm not sure, Seth. Maybe if you want to clarify a little bit more. I'm guessing is it pulling in like what the exceptions would be on a policy?
Acceptance with the policy. So the commitment that we produce is as per the template which is predefined by underwriters. So it is all approved by underwriters. Alta has their own commitment format template. Same, I think there are other templates, and we use that as a baseline for us to make sure that it is as per the requirement of the customer. But is there any other questions?
Yeah, someone else said, clarifying, said he's asking if it will populate the exceptions and requirement codes within the actual title production software.
Yes, so when they do this, as I mentioned, when they do their own internal quality evaluation, and they do it on a regular basis, because this is the one which is what is the bread and butter. When they do it, and when they do it this and say, hey, we are getting 99.8%. So we never started, I'm very frank with you, straightforward. We never started with 99.8. We started with maybe 77, and then slowly, gradually, because of the human, the feedback in the loop, that we were able to have a learning going on, and then we were able to reach to a point where we started offering 99.8. That's where they said, okay, fine. We would now have a kind of real-time API integration. But yes, it is meeting their expectations as far as the accuracy is concerned, and it goes right into their system. Whether it is I do not want to name some of those platforms, but yes, it has a pre-built API to be integrated with all those major title operating systems.
Okay. Another question for you, CJ, again on the use of the AI agent. Is it possible for the AI agent to exist in your system and search your title plant database, such as use the AI agent to request all documents recorded against a particular legal description?
Yeah, so that's where I mentioned that there's a legal description anomaly detection that takes place, right? And that I think is one which is where AI engine is able to extract and normalize meets and bounds legal description and make sure that they are able to map them against recorded documents. Now, this is the one which is what has been released by us almost 4 months back. and it is working extremely well. It helps make sure, because this is what is the feedback that we are getting from our client, that any misinterpreted legal calls goes down drastically. It also helps make sure that the first pass accuracy for underwriters approval goes up very well. So,
and the other one for you, CJ, this was more at the top of the presentation when you were talking about understanding the cost. And the question is, would it be more valuable to understand the actual cost as well during the upfront evaluation? What is the point of doing a free proof of concept if the actual ROI never makes sense?
that's a very good question. Absolutely. And I think that's where, if you have a platform which is not in a production mode and which has not delivered impact, and you do not have customer providing the right kind of feedback, that question becomes extremely important. And that's where I was saying that there are individuals, they are offering PowerPoint presentations and vaporware. And so any proof of value, or that would be, I would call is return on efforts, correct? So if we look at any such exercise where client is investing in you and is trying to get the best return on effort, they have to look at, is this the one which is in a production mode? Is it the one which is delivering results today, not on PowerPoint? And so I'm saying, when someone goes through a proof of value and when they do this due diligence, whether I'm going to get return on efforts because they have a full production mode, then they would be putting that right kind of efforts and they'll get the right kind of return on that.
Okay. Yeah. Tim, another question for you. When you were assessing vendors and you picked one for your documentation extraction, how did your staff react? And then how did you get the culture, move it from, very paper-based to where you are now?
First, it's comforting people and telling them that they're not going to lose their jobs. And if you're interested in reducing headcount, then I wouldn't tell them that. But really just making sure that first the message is clear. You're a valuable part of this team. We do need to adapt and change. And our culture at our company, they are used to that. They are used to us trying things, getting it right. They're used to us trying things and getting it wrong, which leads to some frustration, but then we just go back. So I think you have to have a culture of change. And if you don't start working on that and asking folks to take part in trying something new, acknowledge when it doesn't go right, don't try to cover it up, just say, okay, that didn't work. But then celebrate when things work and ask for those folks for their feedback on, is this helpful? Tell me how it is. And making sure that the vendor that you selected or the vendor that you're trying out gets that feedback. Because it's really about the person that's sitting and using it on a day-to-day basis on what they're going to get from it. So as long as they're part of being able to have a voice and being able to share their feedback and being able to celebrate when it works well and when it makes their job easier and builds them and gives them some time back, the culture is going to you're going to find the culture there for the change.
Yeah, well said, definitely. I'm not sure if either of you would have any insight on this, but a question on the use of AI in commercial transactions. Gina says there isn't really a cookie cutter, commercial transaction, but any thoughts or what you're seeing, any trends that where AI may be used in the commercial space?
So I mean, Tim can go, can chip in, but my understanding is that commercial transactions are extremely complex, and those are high value transactions. So you have to find out a niche. You have to find out a swim lane, which is where you can make sure that without having to taken too much of risk, you can look at inserting AI. Like for example, order intake, right? If you have an order intake as a simple way of looking at the transaction within the continuum of production, In that case, whether it is commercial or residential, it is going to have a similar kind of complexity, and it can be okay. But if you have to look at something which is on the search side, I think it is going to be extremely risky at this point of time.
Yeah, I would
Right,
say find other areas to where it could impact your production, impact your team. And when we talk about time, it gives your staff or you more time to engage with your commercial lenders. But no, that work's going to be you're still going to be doing it manually.
Yeah, my guess, Tim, if you had a commercial transaction and a lot of things that you talk about post-closing, as far as the documentation and doing X, Y, and Z, it would probably benefit, because if the stack of paper documents is going to be a lot taller on a commercial transaction, so maybe you'd save some time there after the closing.
Yep, sometimes the commercial transactions are light on documents, which is interesting too. So.
All right. Real quick, I did want to mention, definitely the title industry has embraced it, is more focused on AI, and so is Congress. Last July 30th, I guess, last week, the Senate Banking Subcommittee on Securities, Insurance, and Investments had a hearing. It was titled "Guardrails and Growth: AI's Role in Capital and Insurance Markets." And with that, also submitted a letter of the record, described how the industry is embracing technology, including AI, to drive efficiency, reduce costs, without sacrificing the protections provided by title insurance. And the letter highlighted how this investment's helping streamline the processes from searches to documentation, as you mentioned, Tim, and improving processing times. And the letter then highlighted how from 2018 to 2023, the use of tech has helped reduce the cost of title insurance coverage by 5%. So as the country is dealing with affordable housing and everything, everyone's looking at how can we reduce costs. Well, the title industry is reducing costs despite inflation. And that's something that everyone here is joining us today should be proud of. Oftentimes, the industry is viewed as being slow, paper-based, antiquated, when in reality, it has a lot of technology supporting it behind the scenes that people just don't know about. So, I'm sure, Tim, you talk about it with your clients and customers and people on the call. Talk about what you're doing to help your customers, your consumers, streamline the process, and at the end of the day, get closings done more efficiently and reducing risk. So I thought it was an awesome letter that also submitted and just showcased what everyone in the industry has been and is doing, and what they will continue to do. I don't see any more questions in the queue, so we will wrap things up. Just as a reminder, if you missed parts of today's webinar, others in the office would benefit. The webinar is recorded. You'll get a link to it tomorrow in the email. And as I mentioned, all of our webinars are archived on our website at altca.org/webinars. I need to thank SoftPro once again for sponsoring today's webinar. CJ, thank you for sharing your knowledge in this space. And Tim, thank you for taking time on your family vacation. All right.
I just wanted to say thank you to
Tim. Know where to get this.
Incredible co-panelist. Thank you, Tim. You have provided insights and operational depth, which is pragmatic, and it has been extremely wonderful to be part of this panel discussion with you. Thanks
for letting me join. And folks, please reach out to CJ. He's got a ton of knowledge and a great team that is building amazing things. So make sure you reach out to CJ and see what he and Skylar can do for you.
All right. Well, thank you. And that brings us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.